Glendive, Montana, where Jim learned to ride bucking broncos. And no. He did a branding once, but that was it. And people from Florida and people from different places and people from the Falls and Pinnacle where I live, who are the greatest neighbors in the world. You might have somebody else who will apply for that kind of job. So anyway, I'm so glad to see all of you. And I just will kind of start out by saying that I have learned a little bit about my husband Jim from all the kind cards and letters and conversations I've had with so many people. And by golly, they were all real positive. They were all saying how good and kind he was. And you know, I have to agree. He was just a lovely man. He liked simple things. He liked plain food and plain clothes, and he liked his friends and he liked his family, and was just all around good guy. So I just want to, if you feel the same, let me know. If you feel differently, don't tell me. I was going to, I had the thought that I might give you, he was quite a philosopher. And he was kind of a writer from time to time. He wrote that little poem about Herb. But there were a couple things that I thought would be of benefit so that you can't, if I'm giving you a lecture, this will be 2 takeaways. Okay. One is that in a relationship and you're having any kind of problem or anything, he said you can look at the things that you don't like about the other person, or you can look at the things that you do like, and that's a lot better. But then the other one is something, it's a phrase that'll stop any argument in a family. And that is, when I would be out of control, angry about something, Jim would just look at me and he'd say, think of your poor husband who only wants to do the right thing. You see, it makes you laugh, right? And it always cracked me up. So we didn't ever get to have a long argument. So anyway, I'm so happy that you're here. And Jim would be very happy to see all of you. He would have been hugging all over. So thank you. And now, Linda Rogers is going to take control.
Wow.
Well, Catherine's always a hard act to follow. It is so great to see you all here today. I echo Catherine in saying how much I've learned from some of you here today, some of people who sent cards, etc., expressing support for those of us who lost Jim as a very important part of our lives. So we're gathered here to remember and honor the memory of that person that he was. And we're going to start by asking the grandkids to come on up. Because not everybody here knows everybody else here. So we'd like to have the grandkids introduce themselves. I'm thinking maybe in birth order.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Lila. I'm saying. Hold it, you want to start?
I can start. Yeah. So I'm Jack Mejia. I'm Jim's grandson.
I'm Matea Rice. I am Jim's granddaughter.
I'm Harrison Brem. I'm Jim's grandson.
I'm Lila Rice. I'm Jim's granddaughter.
And we have a couple missing today because they weren't able to be here. And who are they?
So my sister Mimi is not here today.
And our brother Simon.
Okay. So thank you very much. And except
Jack.
for Jack, you're excused. Jack has an assignment. So Jim had simple taste. He didn't like ceremony or pomp. That's why our time here is together. Together here is simple. So I'll tell you how it's going to go. Grandson Jack will read Jim's eulogy, and then we're going to share memories of the kind of guy Jim was and why we're going to miss him. Then his ashes are going to be laid into the ground, and cousin Andy Campbell is going to play taps. And remember that Jim was a member of the National Guard, so that has special meaning. And Ruth, Jim's and my sister, will give a benediction, and we're all going to sing amen to that. So get your singing voices ready a little bit. And then we'll sing a sending song together. Jack, would you read about Jim for us, please?
Yes. So, James Stuart Lee was born March 14th, 1943, to Alfred Stuart Lee and Marjorie Nelson Lee. Jim spent an active childhood in Cedar, Minnesota with parents, sisters Ruth and Linda, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, and close friends nearby. He is survived by a devoted wife, Catherine Brem, and children, Christine Lee, Wendy Surprise, Teresa Rice, Peter Brem, as well as grandchildren, Mimi and Jackson Mejia, Matea, Simon, and Lila Rice, and Harrison Brem. Jim retired in 2000 from a long career at Federal Cartridge Company. As part of his next chapter, he and Catherine restored historic Krug Mansion in Glendive, Montana, and brought hundreds of guests to Charlie Montana Bed and Breakfast. They returned to Minneapolis in 2007. In 2022, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and was optimistic through many procedures and a long remission. He died peacefully at home on May 3rd, 2026, cared for by Catherine Hospice and Christopher Selwood. Jim was a kind, humorous, thoughtful man who was beloved by his grandchildren. And you can read more of Grandpa Jim's story on the page being distributed, as well as listen while the memories are commenced now.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Jack. While you're up there, did you have a memory in particular that you wanted to share?
I would like, since my sister's not here, I'd like to share something on her behalf. This is from my sister, Mimi. And as some context, when we were growing up, Jim and Catherine, our grandma, they lived with my sister and I in a duplex in St. Paul. And my sister said, Grandpa Jim, thank you for being the best grandpa any grandkids could ask for. From the time I was born, you have been a friend, an encourager, a cheerleader, and a teacher. You taught me to admire the moon, how to drive a tractor, do so many things around the house, do handstands, and most importantly, how to enjoy salad out of a bag. I will never forget all of our adventures in Montana and Florida. Those were some of the best weeks of my childhood. While Nana was slaving me away, making me put endless pillowcases on endless amounts of pillows, I was really looking forward to spending time outside. I wish I could package the last 28 years into a neat paragraph, but fortunately for both of us, there is too much to capture. In the last 10 years, I have come to appreciate your steadfastness, love, humor, and strength. You have been a rock for our family, and we appreciate you more than you know. While you thought you might be remembered for your running times, your 30-minute planks, your bed and breakfast empire, or how often you were late to dinner, you will really be remembered for your kindness, gentleness, smile, and soft but strong impact you had on everybody. I love you. Thank you. And I'll just say one thing quick, which is that one of the things I admired most about Jim was that he was extremely patient, and that led to some good memories. Like, for example, in a very rough patch of my life, he taught me how to meditate and how to do yoga, and that took quite a bit of patience because I wasn't very flexible or focused. But it also led to some more memorable times. So, for example, we were at the Twins game in August 2014. It was the longest game on record to that point, and he refused to leave despite it being 4.5 hours and the Twins losing by 13 runs. That was a long day for me, but it's a good memory, and I'm happy that he imparted some of that follow through to me and patience as well. Thank you.
Nice.
Thanks, Jack. Anybody have any other twin stories? Jim fell in love with the Twins back in 1961. He was working at Star Tribune as a tour guide, and the newly formed Minnesota Twins were handing out promotional materials along with the newspaper. So he had affection for them from the very beginning, and he always had loved baseball. Does anybody else have baseball memories? I'm looking right at my cousin Dave. David, what was the famous team that you and your cousin played on?
The Redbirds.
All right, the Cedar Redbirds.
We were lucky to get 9 people to make a team, but we played. We had a good time.
And they had uniforms and everything. They looked really good.
Was home field down in Cedar?
Yes.
It's still, the backstop is still kind of standing there.
Some of it is
Yeah.
still there, yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And left field was the railroad tracks. And
Right?
anything over the tracks was a home run.
Been stuck with him all his life. And Mimi and Jack, I guess, mentioned about yoga. Oh, he took that up in later life at Charlie, Montana, after really hurting his shoulder a lot with all that lifting up in the renovation. And he went fiercely after that as well. Seemed like any sport he tried, he kind of fell in love with. And one of those sports was running. Does anybody here have any running memories? My husband's got a story about going out with Jim one morning running, how that went.
For a training session, wouldn't do that again. He liked to cry. He liked to make you cry. But he's the reason we ran for 30 years too.
That's true. He was both cruel and an inspiration.
He was, when I met him, he was one of the 10 fastest men in Minnesota. So that tells you how fast I am.
What was his grandma's time, Catherine? You remember?
She didn't run. I'm sorry.
What was Jim's grandma's time?
It's on the back of a picture.
Is
in
it?
the
I know. He
back
always
in-
knew to the second.
Yeah, it was.
When he was like top 25 in the state or at the
Yeah,
grandma's
uh-huh.
marathon.
Yeah, it's something 24 and some.
Probably.
Would it be 124?
No.
Would it be
224.
224? Okay.
Probably.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
That's fast.
He was real fast. But his knee blew out on him. So then he had to take up home repair.
And yoga.
And yoga.
And yoga. Does anybody know what? Oh, yes.
I checked this with Kathy, but when my father, Jack Moore, had, God, he was late 80s, and he had Alzheimer's, and he was all his life probably one of the least flexible people I've ever met, and a golfer and a walker, and Jim taught him yoga, and I remember, and do you remember that, Mom?
Yeah.
And I remember I came over and there he was leaning over, and that was yoga. And he was doing it, and
Yeah.
Jim, patience of a saint.
Well, he just did it for the humor. Your father was very humorous, and I think they got along real well.
He did it, and it was more than once. I mean, he was.
Yeah. He was.
He was doing it. He was proud of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was amazing.
But I got a competition story from Gary Morton the other day. He called and you know he and Jim had many conversations in the last couple of years. But he was remembering that they went to St. Francis High School together. They were in the same grade, and Gary felt that he was going to be quite a bit stronger than Jim in wrestling. And because he was a farm boy and he had thrown a lot of bales in his day. And what he didn't realize is that if they were starting in the fall, Jim would have been in Montana throwing bales all summer long. And so he was pretty tough too. And they just about, it almost was a draw, if there is such a thing in wrestling. But Gary won. He was happy to see.
Very good.
Any words that come to mind when you think of Jim?
I've got the humor. Humorous. He was very humorous. And tell why you know for a fact that he's humorous.
Because he was elected class clown, St. Francis in 1961.
I can believe that.
One thing, I don't know if any of you experienced, but if the Smith boys would maybe be the ones. Jim was a real motorhead. I mean, he loved talking cars a lot, and he did with his Uncle Herb, who was a Chevy aficionado. We lived next door to Uncle Herb's brother, Uncle Ed, who was a Ford man. So there were a lot of fights there. But Jim did write, he wrote this essay, and he wrote in there, okay, he wrote what he considered to be the best car Chevy ever made. Now, I don't know if any of you would have a guess.
Impala.
The Impala?
Yeah.
No.
When
no.
did he write it?
He wrote,
That makes a difference.
oh, well, that's true. He wrote this probably in the 90s.
Oh well.
I don't know, that's rough.
So well, for him, he said the gold anniversary 55 Chev
Oh, there you go.
and the 57 Chev,
Oh, yeah.
which is commonly revered, were the best cars Chevrolet ever built, and Uncle Herb had them both. And Bill can attest to that. So if you go to lunch after this at Hidden Haven, you'll see a photo of Jim and Catherine talking with Brent, actually, about some contraption you made that you brought to a family reunion. And you were explaining how it ran. He'd love to know how things ran. When he was a kid, he put an electric motor on his bicycle, which nobody else had done. See, look at how far ahead of his time he was. Look at now, all the motorized bikes.
E-bike.
Pat, what do you have to say?
Excuse me, and I've told this story to a few people already, but Jim was a real common guy, and he was very respectful of people and everything. And I worked for the railroad for 40 years, and there was a section foreman called Carl Canusa. He was a little guy like this, and he'd been on the hospital board at one time. And Jim got on the hospital board, and we had this little argument, and he looked at Jim and he says, you know what's wrong with the hospital board? There's no common people on there anymore. They're all doctors and lawyers and bankers and everything else. And he said, we need some common people. So Jim come back in just a split second and says, I scrub toilets for a living. How much more common do you want me to be? You know? And then the other couple of things, about Jim was always complimentary. When we go out to eat, we went to Miles City one night. We went up to 509 Club. It was upstairs. It was the winter time. It was jazz music, and the food was good. And he says, we should come back. So I says, you like this place? Oh yeah. I said, I like the music. The jazz music and stuff. So we went another place, Weibo, one night, and they just opened up this brewery, and he said this place could make it any place. He's New York, Montana, whatever else. So he had an eye for what people liked. And my final one is about Catherine and Jim when they kind of moved back here. We come and seen them, and we stayed there. We had the Murphy bed, and I think one room, and they might have slept on the couch or something, And it was a small place. So we went over the Rainbow and did some grocery shopping, and Catherine picked out 2 noodles for the grandkids for the pool in the apartment houses there.
Yeah.
And Jim just had one reaction: where are we going to put them? So always a practical guy. And then he was very thankful they got that little screened-in place where you could put a bike and some noodles and for the grandkids. Yeah. What a guy thinking about all the time, where are we going to put them? Yeah. All right, thanks.
It's the problem. Thanks, Pat. One day
shoulder problems, and he would go downstairs while we were tidying things up, and he would use a pulley. He made his own pulley to pull his arm up, and then every day he would come back upstairs and he'd say, just look how far I can get my arm up, you know, and it would just sit there and shake. But now that Pat and I are both done roofing, neither one of us can get that arm up there either. So now I need Jim's pulley. But one day we'd gotten done cleaning rooms and it was time to go. It was spring, I think, and we're going to change the windows, taking all those old windows down, and the ladder went up 3 stories. And I told Jim, he's like, no, you can go, I'm fine. Catherine was working on something else, and I said, you can't be out here by yourself. I'll hold the ladder. Well, I think it was probably the longest day of his life, because I was constantly telling him, no, you can't do that. You have to do it this way, and you have to do it that way, and
He still likes you.
he, I think, thought he had a second wife. But I really enjoyed working for the both of them, and I'm gonna miss him.
Yeah. But I got to tell you one story about his shoulders, and then I'll tell you about the windows. And one of the things to loosen up the scar tissue after he had one side surgically done and then one side just done with physical therapy. But this seems not to be in the same train of thought. But I had been running for office, and I had a bunch of signs that I had painted that were about yay by yay and pretty thick. And so what he would do is stack up the signs underneath the garage doorway and hang on to the door frame and jump off in order to loosen things up.
Oh.
I never heard him scream or anything. I don't know, but yeah. Oh, and then the windows she's talking about. You think of a window, you know, this is a big window. Ours were at least 6 feet tall on the second floor and about 4 feet wide. And they were heavy wooden frames, and he had to take them down the ladder, down to the ground floor, and then go up and make some adjustments and then come down again. And it was a giant effort every year to do those windows. So I think the new owners put in air conditioning so they don't have to take the storm windows off.
Other memories?
I have a good memory of Grandpa Jim. So when my cousin Mimi and I, who Jack spoke about before, were little, we loved performing and singing and dancing. We had a little keyboard. We would make songs and record them. And in my parents' house at the time, it was just like an empty concrete basement, and we didn't really have anywhere to perform. And Grandpa Jim built us an entire stage, and we had little fake microphones, and he built it all for us so that we could give shows properly, because he knew it was very important to us. And I'm sure that was a very hard work that we probably didn't realize at the time because we were little kids. But he came over and built the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
So he always wanted to do whatever was going to make us happy.
Yes,
which is very
that's
sweet.
right.
Well, I can conclude with a story that kind of combines Jim's sense of humor with his passion for running. And I found out he had a droll sense of humor. I had to look up what exactly is a droll sense of humor. Well, it's a kind of humor that reflects a surprising perspective. It's not like ha 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 funny, but it's just kind of like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. So he would offer up these little quips after somebody else had said something or done something. He'd give a little twist on an observation, which was why he was voted class clown. But he was successful at a lot of things because he also had practice pushing through hard things. And running was one of those hard things. Never seemed to bother him that it was hard or that it hurt. And that's why he was able to do so well. So when I picked up running, just after Brennan was born, Brennan holding Dan over there, I started running, and 1 block at a time, and thought I was doing pretty well. You know, Ron and I were moving up to 1 mile, 5K, and one time I told Jim how tired I was at the end of the race. I don't know, it was a 10K or a half marathon, and he said, it wasn't like sympathetic at all. He just said, well, you're out there too long. Which was true. When you think about it, it was true. So thanks for sharing those glimpses, those little glimpses that make his memory stay alive for all of us together. When our Uncle Herb reached his 90th birthday, I think you maybe have this poem in hand. I should explain who Uncle Herb was, to those of you who might not know. Ruth, Jim, and I lost our dad when Ruth was about 12, Jim was about 9, and I was a year and a half. And his brother, Herb, and his wife were wonderful to us. I mean, they really helped raise us. They came to all our events. They gave us supportive conversation and family history. And for Jim in particular, because Ruth and I had our mom, our female role model, but for Jim, Uncle Herb became his role model. And so much of Jim I attribute to what he saw in Uncle Herb. And he kind of did the same. When our Uncle Herb reached his 90th birthday, Jim celebrated his life with a poem, and you might have it in front of you. Talks about his impact. When I was young, without a dad, he gave it everything he had to show me how to be a man. To do things right and take a stand. To help my family, share with friends, and helping neighbors never ends. To work with pride and loyalty, give the best I have in me. To drive with care, because without, an accident might come about. It's very practical advice. That every day things might seem tough, but a man can find just strength enough to be the kind of caring guy who gives his heart, who gives it a try. And that was our Jim. And I believe we're going to place the ashes.
Yes, I don't quite know how to do that. So if we had a couple of burly grandchildren.
You guys are burly.
Burly, right? We're burly. I don't know. I'll take them burly. Yeah, I think they're a little more cheap.
I know you're still young. Okay, so what do you think? I think there's the hole underneath there.
Okay, but what? So we're moving this?
Yeah, take the top off and there's a hole under there and then we'll put the ashes in the hole. I think that's how it looks.
Yeah.
Ah. Okay. Wait. So, who can do this? I don't know. I can do it. I don't know if I can do it without jumping in. Yes.
You guys have longer arms.
Yeah, well, that doesn't go.
We know who he is.
Yeah, it's a certificate of. Okay, so then I think we can put that plate back.
Don't put the
No.
shine upon you and give you peace. And be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. And we all say amen to that.
Amen.
Amen. Sing along.
Amen. 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 Amen.
One more time.
Amen. 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 Amen.
We're going to regroup after the service at Hidden Haven Restaurant. Jim reflected in an essay what he admired in Uncle Herb. But these are the same things I admire about Jim. He wrote, Uncle Herb has character and of course is one. I remember his gentleness, right-mindedness, doing things because they are the right things to do. Generosity, honesty, humor, curiosity, and understanding. Values I recall are God, family, professional excellence, education, music, and science. The dollar seemed to come in pretty low on this list. Although getting that dollar in the correct place is pretty important. He got that part right. Some achieve greatness through accumulation of wealth or prestige or power. These are not representative of greatness. The measure of greatness is commitment to those principles and values that he held dearly. We would all do well to be more like him. And now I say, we would all do well to be more like Jim. So now let's sing together for Jim and his life well lived. When the Saints Go Marching In is a song that he grew up with and played. Saints aren't perfect. Saints are just everyday people trying to do good with their lives. And that was Jim, who if he were standing among us, would sing earnestly. Annie, can you start us off?
When the saints go marching in, oh, when the saints go marching in, oh, I want to be in that number. When the saints go marching in, when the saints go marching in, oh, when the saints go marching in, oh, I want to be in that number. When the saints go marching in, when the saints go marching in, oh, I want to be in that number. When the saints go marching in.
Thank you.
Why did you think of that music?
I thought of that music because Jim went to St. Francis High School. He played and sang that many times.
It was their fight song or their...
It wasn't their official fight song, but it got used quite a bit.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andy. That was wonderful.
And we'll see many of you at Hidden Haven.